Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by Sean Zerillo and Collin Whitchurch today to look at a full slate in the majors. It is August 12th. We have a lot of teams that are right in the thick of a playoff race, so we'll see how that plays into some of your best bets and the rest of your card here tonight, boys. But also we have some teams that have potentially thrown up the white flag, and you're seeing some inflated numbers, maybe stretching into that value play description. Let's just get right into it. Let's look at best bets here for Tuesday. Sean, we're going to start with you with the Cubs, just at about plus money. You also like over 9 for the total. The Cubs, Phillies, and Dodgers are all locked in a three-way cage match, chasing that 2 seed that also comes with the coveted bye to the NLDS. Now, obviously, teams can still overtake the Milwaukee Brewers, who have been white hot. And the Cubs in particular have that massively important 5-game series coming up with the Brew Crew. But first, they get the Jays and then the Pirates this week. Critically, they're avoiding Skeens in that Pirates series. So let's look at what they have to do against Toronto. Tonight, they trot out Ben Brown. The towering righty has put together 2 really solid starts in back-to-back outings for the first time since April. Berrios, meanwhile, on the other side of this, has been backsliding. A rough July is now bleeding into August for him. Are you surprised he's still favored in this spot?
Yeah, a little bit actually, because I do make the Cubs slate favorites. I would bet the Cubs down to minus 102. I projected them at minus 110 here on the road. I make the total about 9.5, so like the over 9 up to minus 110. These are 2 of the top 3, 2 of the top 4 offenses in baseball. On the year, Toronto second, Cubs third in terms of WRC plus, 114, 113 respectively. Past 30 days against right-handed pitching, the Cubs are third. Actually, all the Dodgers, Cubs, and Jays all tied for third against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days at a 115 WRC plus. So 2 of the best offenses, also 2 of the lowest strikeout rates of baseball. Toronto first, 17%. The Cubs are fourth at 20%, and they tend to grind opposing pitching staffs down. Lots of foul balls, lots of taken pitches below the zone, and they get into those opposing bullpens. So I like these 2 offenses to grind one another down. And I would imagine by Thursday of this series, game 3 of these series, these bullpens might be a little bit tired, even though both teams had an off day on Monday. Now, I do prefer Ben Brown slightly to Jose Berrios. That's not saying much because I'm down on both of these pitchers. Brown just has the 2 pitches, just the fastball and the curveball. And I think you see in the career time through the order splits, he gets hit harder. Second time through the order, there's a bigger drop off in terms of OPS, especially out of the bullpen. As a starting pitcher, the splits have been a little bit more neutralized, but they tried to use him as a follower, using an opener in front of him a bunch last year. They tried it a couple times this year too. And generally speaking, there is a drop off in effectiveness for Ben Brown second time through the order, but I'm generally down on Jose Berrios. Every single metric for him that I would point to as a key performance indicator is at a career worst mark. 4.6 expected ERA, 4.3 expected FIP, 93 pitching plus, 4.7 body ERA. As I said, all of those a career low for Berrios. Also 12.5% strikeout minus walk rate. So down on these starting pitchers, down on these bullpens. Last 30 days, both of these bullpens trending more towards league average rather than top 10 units on the year. And over the first 2-3 months of the season, Toronto had the number 1 bullpen in baseball. Last 30 days, 14th in expected FIP, 15th in strikeout minus walk rate. So Cubs actually have the better bullpen over the last 30 days. They're top 10 by both of those metrics, and they're the better defensive team as well. Third in defensive runs saved, 7th in outs above average. Jays closer to 10th and 15th in those respective categories. So as I said, I projected the Cubs around minus 120 or minus 110. I projected the total around 9.5. Take the Cubs to minus 102 and the total to 9 at minus 110. And you could same game parlay those together. I think there is correlation here between the dog and the overs. So sticking those 2 together, I don't think is the worst way to go about playing this game. I'm just going to go ahead and bet them straight. And individually, though, in the event that Brown does end up getting blown up, at least we push on this game.
Speaking of Ben Brown, Collin, you like under on his strikeouts tonight, sitting at 4.5. You got to pay a pretty hefty amount of juice on it, minus 150. Just looking into his game log, his pitching performance is really hard to pin down what we can expect from a pitch count perspective. It's been like a 50 pitch spread. He goes from like the low 50s to hitting triple digits. just in his last 7 starts. So what are you expecting from Brown here, and why do you think there's enough value, or I should say enough likelihood of it going under 5Ks to be able to pay something so hefty at minus 150 on a prop?
Yeah, I like everything Zerillo said there about Ben Brown. The fact of the matter is Ben Brown's a reliever. The Cubs are trying everything they can to make him a starting pitcher. Was one of their top pitching prospects for a while. Actually, crazy journey that he got there. He was a 33rd round pick by the Phillies. Like, he was drafted in a round that doesn't even exist anymore. Went to Chicago for David Robertson way back when as a teenager. And he is essentially a 2-pitch pitcher. And the strikeout total right now is sitting at 4.5. And I think that sports books are just kind of hesitant to set a strikeout total lower than 4.5, except in extreme circumstances. Early in the season, Brown was missing bats at an elite rate. We were regularly seeing him strike out 6 to 9 batters an outing, even as he was getting shelled in the process before he got sent back down to the minors. The thing is, his knuckle curve is elite. 120 stuff plus, misses bats like crazy. His fastball is insanely hittable, and he lives in the zone too much to get by against a team like Toronto. He throws the ball in the strike zone 53.5% of the time. For reference, the league average for zone percentage is 41%. When he throws the ball outside of the strike zone, it's with the knuckle curve. He's generating a ton of whiffs with it. But when he's in the strike zone, it's not as impressive. It's more league average-ish. And his fastball grades out below average. Toronto, as Sean mentioned, is the toughest team in the majors to strike out. Brown's going to be relying on that knuckle curve to induce whiffs, and I don't think Toronto's going to bite. He has 2 pitches, and when he's in the zone, they're going to be able to foul off some of those tougher offerings until they get their pitch. I'm personally staying away from the sides here. I do like Sean's total, and he mentioned a same-game parlay. Throw Ben Brown under 4.5 strikeouts in there, too, if you want to get a little bit better juice. But yeah, I think that under 4.5, even at the juice, is really good value here because, Brown isn't striking out as many batters as he did earlier in the season. He's trying to kind of, maybe refine himself as a pitcher. It's not working just yet. I think this guy could be an elite reliever. I think we could see him have like a Wade Davis-esque career where all of a sudden he becomes a lockdown closer as he gets a little older. Right now, the Cubs are doing everything they can to make him a starting pitcher. It's not working. And I like under 4.5 on his strikeouts tonight.
Let's stick with your best bet, Collin. Over 8.5 between the Rockies and the Redbirds. One thing that's interesting with any Rockies over, aside from their bullpen, which can always give up monster innings, is there's actually some decent power in this Rockies lineup. Yes, they struggle to hit consistently, but they're 9th in the NL in slugging, 8th in home runs, and they played in an absurd 7 games this month that have produced 13 runs or more. You're counting on more fireworks between the Cardinals and Rockies here tonight.
Yeah, you look at the Rockies game log since the All-Star break. Obviously, they're entering this on an 8-game losing streak, but since the trade deadline, runs allowed by the Rockies 17, 8, 9, 15, 10, 20, 6, 6, 13, and then last night just 3. So last night was the outlier. This bullpen has, this bullpen was bad before the trade deadline. They traded the only relievers worth a damn, Jake Bird, Tyler Kinley, out the door. But I want to talk about Kyle Freeland first a little bit. Kyle Freeland has been in Colorado for an eternity, 9 years. That feels like an eternity, especially in Colorado standards. You look at his baseball reference page, and it's like stepping into a time machine. He got NL Rookie of the Year votes in 2017 and actually finished 4th in NL Cy Young voting in 2018. And you look at that ballot, and it's really funny. The top 3 guys in voting that year: Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Aaron Nola. 4th, Kyle Freeland, of course. and fifth, by the way, that year was our old friend Patrick Corbin. He's been a Rocky so long that he started a playoff game for this franchise. Like, the Rockies were a playoff team during Kyle Freeland's second year. 2018 wildcard game against the Cubs, the Rockies won in extra innings. They lost in the NLDS to the Brewers. He's an example of how the Rockies actually do love to spend money. It's just always on their incredibly mediocre homegrown talent. This is Freeland's 9th year in Colorado. As I mentioned, he's making $16 million this year. He's going to make $16 million next year. And then he has a $17 million vesting option for 2027 if he throws 170 innings. But I digress. We're talking about today's game. I know I just have to go on my little baseball reference deep dives here. Freeland is an incredibly mediocre starting pitcher. The Rockies pitchers are a rare case where looking at home road splits can actually be helpful. It won't surprise you to learn that Freeland is better on the road than he is at home. He has a 4.75 ERA this year on the road, 6.52 at home in Coors, and he has 12 more innings on the road. But what's important to remember about that little detail is that 4.75 ERA is still incredibly mediocre. He has just a 16% strikeout rate this year, which is down from his career rate, which is an already pedestrian 17.1%. The other side of this matchup, we have Matthew Liberatore. He's basically a young Kyle Freeland right now, a mediocre young southpaw who doesn't miss bats. He's been much more successful than Freeland this year from a run prevention standpoint, 3.98 ERA. What I think has been tough for books to catch up with right now is that the Rockies offense, as you mentioned, Mike, isn't what the Rockies offense was when they were getting off to their 9-50 start. Since July 1st, the Rockies actually have a top 10 offense against left-handed pitching, 109 WRC plus. They're still dead last for the full season, so you can take these arbitrary cutoff dates with a grain of salt. But I like going back to around the start of July at this point in the season because these teams' rosters makeup are a lot different now than they were in, say, April and May. The Cardinals against lefties, they're steadily above average, 104 WRC plus since the start of July, 104 WRC plus for the full season. It's good, above average, not great. And as I mentioned, the Rockies bullpen is an absolute disaster. They played last night, used a couple of their quote-unquote key relievers, if they have any key relievers. There's been a few possible ways to attack this one. One thing that I've really enjoyed doing since the trade deadline is betting Rockies' opponent team totals over and also alt overs. Very, very profitable during that Toronto series where they allowed 15, 10, and 20 runs in 3 games. You could potentially do that with the Cardinals. Their team total right now over 4.5 is about minus 125. You could bet them up to 6, 7, 8. For the more risk averse, though, I think just betting the full game total at over 8.5 is great value. So that's my best bet today.
Would argue that Kyle Freeland's contract is the 3rd worst contract on the Rockies. I would take that contract, which was 5 years and $64.5 million over Antonio Senzatella's 5-year $50 million contract, or Chris Bryant's 7-year $182 million contract.
Would you take it over Ezekiel Tovar's contract? I guess he's
absolutely not. I love Tovar. I think Tovar is still going to be a good player. A little bit of a step back this year, but no, it's astonishing that, and I think they signed all 3 of those the same year. I think they signed the Freeland, Senzatella, and Chris Bryant deals all in 2022. Whoever was the GM for that team in 2022 should be blackballed from baseball
and he's probably still the GM today.
He probably is still the GM.
Yeah.
This segment brought to you by Ernst & Young Accounting. Quick follow-up for you, Collin, in terms of a prop, or I should say an alt total for that Rockies game. I'm seeing plus 750 on over 15 runs in that game. Does that?
Let's go.
There we go. All right, let's fire that one in. I need something to spice up my Tuesday. All right, let's hop into your favorite underdogs here. We'll start with you, Sean. The Padres just going off at plus money, plus 105, plus 110. On July 26th, the Padres had dropped 4 straight. Deadline was approaching. It seemed like the season was getting away from them, particularly with the hyper-competitive NL wildcard race in front of them. And now they've proceeded to win 12 of 15. They do add at the deadline. Nestor Cortez comes in. He's far removed from that 2022 season when he went 12-4 with a 2.44 ERA for the Yankees. But what do you see him giving the Padres down the stretch? And obviously you think it's going to be enough in this game to go ahead and play the Padres at plus money.
Yeah, I find the valuation of Nestor Cortez fascinating. He got traded from the Yankees in the offseason in part of the Devin Williams deal. He made his first start back against the Yankees during that first week when the Yankees were going nuts with the torpedo bats, and he gave up 5 home runs in that start. And I feel like people in their minds assume that Nestor Cortez continued to pitch for the Brewers and continued to give up 5 home runs every start for the next 3 months. He's made 2 other starts since then, and they were both okay. One was for the Padres, one was for the Brewers. But this is still a guy who the past 2 years had an expected ERA of 3.6. His rest of season FIP projections, the average is still 4.2. This is still closer to a league average starting pitcher. People are viewing this guy like he's a replacement level arm. And I think it all goes back to that torpedo bat start in the first week of the season where he gave up 5 home runs and 1 outing. So I don't really know, what caused this giant dip in Nestor Cortez's valuation. When he first came up, this is a guy I was betting on every start. I always thought he was underrated. Then he became properly rated, then likely overrated at some point. And now I think he's back to being underrated. And I'm dead serious when I say him being underrated right now, I think purely goes back to that very public start the first week of the season when he got lit up by the Yankees. That might have even been opening day. I can't recall if that was the first or second day of the season. I would assume Peralta started the first game for the Brewers, and then Cortez probably went second. But just in terms of this matchup, I don't think Cortez is so much worse than Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray has also been wearing down as the season has gone on. First half, Robbie Ray, 385 expected FIP, 18% strikeout minus walk. Second half, expected FIP gone up from 3.8 to 4.5. Strikeout minus walk down from about 18% to 9%. So roughly halved. Also, last 30 days, Padres offense, much better, especially against left-handed pitching. I've brought this up several times this season, but the Giants are just built a little bit more to hit right-handed pitching as opposed to left-handed pitching. Last 30 days, a 61 WRC plus against Southpaws, and then the obvious bullpen advantage for the Padres, basically over any team, but especially over a depleted Giants unit that traded away Doval and Rogers. Giants last 30 days, 16th in expected FIP, 23rd in strikeout minus walk rate, 22nd in pitching plus, and 27th in body array. Bottom 10 bullpen by almost all measurements, below average by expected FIP. Padres top 6 by all 4 of those measurements as well. So I make the Padres about minus 103 here. I would bet them down to plus 105 for Tuesday. And I'm a little bit interested in Padres futures. Of all the teams in the NL, it's probably the Padres. I'm just not sure if they have quite enough starting pitching or power in their lineup to get it done. I like this team a bunch last year. I thought they had the best roster at this point last year. I'm not sure if that's the case this season, but of the teams in the National League, I think they're the team I'm most interested in from a futures perspective. So I'll see if I add anything on the Padres going forward. I think a lot of it is, are they going to get quality innings from guys like Nestor Cortez or JP Sears, who they acquired at the deadline behind Darvish, and behind Cease in the playoffs? Because as I've said, you in the NL, given the NLDS schedule, you need 4 starting pitchers. You do not get the extra off days. You need to use 4 starting pitchers in the NLDS. You can't roll over your guys unless you're going to start them on short rest. So having a 3rd and 4th starter, I think, is the biggest need or the biggest hole for the Padres at this point. We'll see if Cortez can fill one of those spots.
Yeah, the Padres are, we talked about the Padres a lot in I feel like late May, early June. We were kind of down on them, thought they might be a team worth selling. And the reason that we were potentially selling them at that point was because of the roster around their stars, right? And at the trade deadline, the big headline they made was the acquisition of Mason Miller. But what I really liked that they did was go out and trade for Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano, because those guys are not superstars, but they allowed them to get rid of, the Martin Maldonados of the world. Freddie Furman actually was a great acquisition there too, because it helped them from a catching standpoint. It helped them give less playing time to these literal negative WAR players that they were fielding. They're only rostering 6 players who are worth more than 1 win above replacement. Their bench and the bottom half of their depth in their lineup is littered with negative WAR players, and their deadline helped shore that up. Sean mentions the starting pitching. Pivetta, Cease, King, now Yu Darvish healthy back is a big deal. They just sent JP Sears down to the minors after making 1 start. It's weird for a team without a lot of pitching surplus. As you mentioned, they sent Kolek out at the deadline. Thankfully for everyone, they're no longer relying on Randy Vasquez. But yeah, that pitching, it's so feast or famine with this team. I think if they get in October, they're going to be one of the most interesting teams to watch because they have the star power to make a run. It's just going to be whether or not they have that depth as they get into games 3, 4, 5 of a series. We saw in previous years where they were having to throw bullpen games out against the Dodgers, in the NLDS. And if they have that depth, they definitely have the talent to go on a run. But it's an interesting team to watch for sure.
Yeah, King coming back slipped my mind. I mean, that should, in theory, be enough. Like, Cease, Darvish, King, and
Pavetta.
Pavetta. Cease has been changing up his pitch mix recently. He's going away from his four-seamer. He's throwing more secondary stuff, which is helping him. Xander Bogaerts is actually, like, finally awakening from the dead over the past month plus and hitting. So, yeah, they're intriguing, and it seems like, in theory, they should have enough starting pitching. It's just a matter of getting those guys healthy to October over the next 6 weeks. But as I've said, from a futures perspective in the NL, they are the team that's starting to interest me more so than the others.
On Fridays, we usually have Derek Carty on the show, and he likes to say, I'm not going to overreact to a small sample size. Maybe it's time to overreact to what's happening with the Mets. What is it? They've dropped 12 of 13, 11 of 12, something like that. It's kind of free fall territory for them. Meanwhile, you have the Braves coming in to Queens. They are plus 120 tonight, and the Braves have clearly given up. So this is kind of an interesting head-to-head, but you're getting a massive discount on Spencer Strider. This is actually his first start of 2025 where you're getting him as a true underdog with plus money attached. I wonder, I mean, let's throw this out to our research department. How many pitchers have been priced at minus 330 or longer and plus money in the same season? Because he went off at minus 330 against the Rockies just 2 months ago. So let's start there, Collin, in terms of this matchup against the Mets, who they're trying something new. You know, they've never had a season where they've spent months and months in first place and then fallen apart in August and September. So, you know, they're just trying this on to see maybe the swoon is early this year and there's enough time to bounce back. Enough Met bashing. Let's get into the specifics of why you think the Braves have the goods with Strider on the bump to win this one.
Yeah, I talked a lot about Clay Holmes on last Tuesday's podcast. That's what this handicap is mostly about, a fade of Clay Holmes. And his stuff has diminished as the season has wore on. The Mets are continuing to lighten his workload. Of course, last time out, he actually looked as good as he has in a long while. He allowed 2 runs in 5 innings with 6 strikeouts and 1 walk against the Guardians. We did still cash his outs recorded line, though, if you got 16.5, 15.5, because the Mets pulled him after 5 innings, even though he was just at 75 pitches. We're once again getting 15.5s popping up at a few books, and I'm going to be all over that again. I think under 15.5 outs is around minus 150 at a couple of books. I think there's insane value on that because even if he pitches well, as he proved in his last start, they're going to pull him early. There's no reason to think that they won't, especially considering the Mets had an off day Monday, so their bullpen is a little bit rested. Spencer Strider's not all the way back, but he's been missing bats at a promising clip as he recovers from the internal brace that cost him all of 2024. I think it'll be interesting to see what his Cy Young odds are next year, as he'll be even further removed from that procedure. We could get a little bit of a discounted price, with many forgetting just how dominant this pitcher was not all that long ago. He'll still just be 27 next year. In terms of underdog plays today, though, I really like Atlanta. The Mets, as you mentioned, Mike, they've lost 7 straight. Generally, in this scenario is where you'd want to buy a team this talented because the streak has to snap sometime. I don't think they're going to lose forever, but I don't think it's going to be tonight with Holmes on the hill where they snap that streak. Strider's missing bats at a near elite rate once again. For all of Atlanta's problems this year, offense hasn't really been an issue. They're still above average against right-handed pitching. I think they'll knock Holmes out of the game early. Or if they don't, he'll get pulled early. Whether that Atlanta bullpen can hold up in the late innings will be the real question. What we really need is for Atlanta to build up a decent lead against Holmes early on. And for Strider to hold up from a run prevention standpoint. Like I mentioned, he's missing bats, but he's still allowing a decent amount of runs. Either way, I do think there's value here, given how much I like to fade Holmes, how much he has going against him in a start like this. So around plus 120. I think it's worth taking a shot on Atlanta on the money line here. And if you want to do an SGP here, Braves money line with Holmes under 15.5 outs, it's of course correlated, so they're going to goose those odds a little bit, but that pays out at plus 166 at DraftKings at the time of this recording. Obviously, find the best price, shop around, but might be a little nice opportunity to use your boosts if there are those SGP boosts out there.
Football season is here, folks, and we've got some huge improvements and updates coming to the award-winning Action Network app. We're very excited to discuss those in the coming weeks, but to get the most out of the app, you're still going to need to be an Action Pro subscriber. It's only with Action Pro that you get real-time pick alerts from me and the entire Action Network team of experts. That means Sean Zerillo. That means Sean Kerner. As I mentioned, football season's here. You do not want to miss the best numbers as they pop from our experts in the app. Plus, you get access to pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and his predictive analytics team, plus a million other benefits. And right now, Action Network podcast listeners can save $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and use code payoff20. That's actionnetwork.com/pro and use code payoff20 for $20 off the annual price of Action Pro. All right, more picks here on the Tuesday card. Sean, let's look at, you're betting this like every which way. Pittsburgh first 5, game at just, across the plus money threshold and under 7. I mentioned at the top that the Cubs missed Skeens, but he is going to be pitching tonight. And as I said, this triple front play, I like it because, obviously the first 5 element of it, he's not going to get betrayed by his offense, or at least it's mitigated in terms of them leaving him out to dry if he can go ahead and put together 5 innings of shutout ball or 1-run ball. Anything else that you see from this Pittsburgh lineup, that any signs of life, or do you think it's going to be all on Skeen's shoulders, which is not a bad strategy to go with?
Yeah, it's mostly on Skeens, but he's actually made some tweaks and been pitching a little bit better, say, over the past 6 weeks than he even was over the first 3 months of the season. He was throwing a splitter this year. You heard about him introducing some new pitches in spring training, introduced a splitter about 20% of the time this year, and it graded out as his worst pitch, 92 stuff plus, and it was getting the worst results of the pitches in his arsenal. 330 expected WOBA. Nothing else in his arsenal is above 280. 281 on the fastball, 203 on the sweeper, 106 on his changeup. So stop throwing your worst pitch ball Skeens and you'll have a little bit better results. And he has started to put the pitch away over the past 6 weeks. The split usage has gone down from 22% to 8%. His ERA is about the same. ERA 188 versus 204. So basically been equally effective, but under the hood. Strikeout minus walk rate has gone up from 21% to 26%. Expected FIP gone down from 310 to 2.9. Stuff plus has actually gone down, which is a little bit odd because he's throwing the pitch with lesser stuff plus less often, but he's actually throwing his fastball more often. His fastball is up 12%, and the fastball also by stuff grades is also below 100. So not a huge surprise there, seeing the stuff dip, even though he's throwing his worst pitch less often because he's just reallocating it to another pitch that also grades below 100 stuff plus. But the body ERA, despite the pitching plus and stuff plus going up, the body ERA has gone down from 3.2 to 2.8. So I think this is an encouraging positive change for Skeens in terms of optimizing his arsenal, pushing his fastball usage back up, and then maybe some point in the future, as his fastball velocity dips, you see him introduce the secondary stuff a little bit more. Maybe he goes more sweeper heavy and changeup heavy in the future as the fastball velocity declines with age. You see that with Nathan Eovaldi this season. Eovaldi used to be a guy who threw 100 miles an hour. He's throwing his fastball less often than he's ever thrown it this year, and until last night has had a ton of success doing so. So just something to keep in mind as Paul Skeens ages into his career. He will continue to adjust and modify his pitch mix, but he's already showing in season that that's something he's comfortable and capable of doing. So yeah, I project about a full run differential between Skeens and Peralta in terms of a rest of season FIP projection. Skeens about 275, Peralta closer to 375, if not 4. And then in terms of the umpire, not only do we have quality starting pitching, Pirates offense struggles to score runs, but a good plate umpire here as well in Roberto Ortiz, about a 57% win rate to the under in his career and 8% ROI in terms of betting the unders. Not an umpire you hear a lot about in terms of being pitcher friendly. Doug Eddings, typically the guy who gets referred to most often. Lance Barksdale a little bit. But yeah, Roberto Ortiz is one of the best under umpires out there based upon the data that we have. His strikeout minus walk rate being a little bit above the major league average. So Pirates first 5, I make minus 130. Full game, I make them about minus 105. You can bet those to minus 120 and plus 102 respectively. Feel free to split a wager between those two halves. And then I make the total about 6.2. So the under 7 flat to minus 120 is a bet for me as well. And you don't have to full size all 3 of those bets. You can kind of allocate between the first 5 and the full game and then size the under the same, or you could size all 3 of them smaller. But I think there is value on all 3 of those angles in this Pirates-Brewers game as the Brewers continue to get all of the public love amidst the 10-game winning streak. I think Skeens going against them today. Certainly value on the underdog and getting Skeens as an underdog.
The Diamondbacks have been red hot, dropping just 1 game through 9 innings since August 2nd. A lot of wins, a few extra inning losses. They're turning to journeyman Anthony DeSclafani in this one. What do you need from him to feel really good about this underdog play? Do you need 3-4 innings, 1-2 runs? Like, what does he need to bring to the table for you to feel like they can steal this game late?
Just the league average performance, and I think that's what he is. I've always been a fan of Tony Disco. Career 4.1 expected FIP. That is a league average starting pitcher. He's coming off of a flexor tendon repair, so he didn't have Tommy John, but he did have an elbow injury that had, a year-plus recovery, and he's been mostly working out of the pen this year, but the stuff plus is up. Career 95 stuff plus, 100 out of the pen in 2 starts this season, and his sinker, his curve, his changeup, all great, better than 100 on the stuff plus scale. So I think there is a competent, effective major league arm in there. Now, his first start back, 3 walks, no Ks. Last start, 4 Ks, no walks. So command is always an issue coming off of any sort of arm injury for these guys. You really don't know what you're going to get from start to start. But I do think the stuff for Disco gives him a pretty high floor. And on the other side of the matchup, you have Jack Leiter, who does have a very high walk rate and is probably going to be a little bit wild on a start to start basis, a little bit more consistently wild than DeSclafani would be. 12% walk rate. Diamondbacks take a lot of pitches, less so without Naylor and Suarez in there. But as a team, as a philosophy, they do tend to take a lot of pitches, try to walk a bunch. I think they can grind Leiter down. As I was mentioning with DeSclafani, 4.1 expected FIP for his career. I believe Leiter closer to 4.9. But Leiter has really good stuff, 109 stuff plus. Just the command piece that's the issue. A 90 location plus, that 12% walk rate just gives him kind of a lower ceiling until he figures out the command piece. Very talented arm going forward. I think gives the Rangers some upside down the stretch if they're able to get into the playoffs. If this guy can finally figure out the command, they do have a very interesting starting rotation with the Grom and Eovaldi above him. But majority of tickets on Texas today, vast majority of cash on the D-backs. It's like 60% tickets, 65% tickets on Texas, 65% cash on Arizona based on the splits I saw this morning. And the line is starting to move in on the Arizona side. I bet them at plus 130. I saw them at plus 125 this morning. Projected them at plus 110. Would take them at plus 120 or better. So slight starting pitching edge for me there. And I think the lineups are a little bit more comparable than you might expect, even with the D-backs getting rid of a couple of their key pieces. And I'm just kind of down on this Rangers lineup relative to where I was in the preseason.
That Tony Disco, that's a blast from the past for us there, Zerillo. I remember we made a lot of money on Tony Disco in that magical 2021 season he had in San Francisco. He was out of the majors, either injured or in the minors all of last year, so I'm glad to see him back.
And another product of that Reds pitching development that developed Tyler Mahle, like these guys who have wide arsenals, who can throw 4, 5, 6 pitches with decent command. I kind of like these guys. I think they are effective because if your slider's not working today or, something isn't working today, there's other options you can go to. It's not a Ben Brown where, hey, I can't throw my curveball for strikes today. What do I do? At least you have 5 or 6 options to go to and potentially get hitters out. So, yeah, I kind of think about DeSclafani and Mahle in the same respect because they came up around the same time and on opposite teams here now. It would have been fun to watch them to go against one another head-to-head in this matchup because Mahle, I believe, is on the Rangers. But, yeah, it's a guy I've always kept my eye on, and I'm glad to see him back healthy and pitching for a team and maybe earns himself, 2 months here to earn himself a contract coming off an injury and, end up somewhere on a contender next year.
Yeah.
This is payoff pitch, so you can count on us to fade Jack Flaherty. We always find one way or another to do it. In this one, Collin likes under 6.5 Ks at just about even money. Captain Jack has actually gone over this strikeout number in 5 of his last 7 starts, but these are the White Sox, and despite being the worst team batting average in the majors, they're actually dead on league average when it comes to strikeout avoidance. Is it that simple for you, Collin?
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to fully fade Flaherty today on the money line because I don't know who's going to pitch for the White Sox today. Sean, do you have a projection in there for someone? Like, who do you have starting?
I have Vassell in there, Mike Vassell.
Yeah, that was my guess, is that he's going to throw. They're just going to have him throw the ball until his arm falls off, basically. Tyler Alexander threw 4 1/3 innings of bulk yesterday. The one thing I was wondering is if they were going to activate Martin Perez. It sounds like that's going to be a little bit later this week for him to rejoin the rotation, but it's imminent. I think Will Venable said he's going to throw one more bullpen before he rejoins the bullpen. In any case, yes, fading Flaherty in the strikeout market. 6.5 is incredibly high. It's true, as you mentioned, that even in all his struggles, Flaherty has still been able to induce whiffs. In fact, you said 5 of 7. I think I saw 6 of 8. 6 of his last 8, he's gone over 6.5. But that just provides a better opportunity to fade him here because I think he's being overvalued. The White Sox do not strike out a lot. For all of their issues, striking out is not one of them. They have, you mentioned some of those stats. They have the 9th lowest K rate against right-handed pitchers since July 1st. That's a stark improvement on their full season numbers, as the lineup has kind of solidified with them not moving any key pieces at the trade deadline. Austin Slater was the only offensive contributor that they traded at the deadline. And, this team is way better against left-handed pitching, as we've talked about a couple times on this show, but they still don't strike out that much against right-handed pitching. Colson Montgomery has absolutely been destroying the baseball since he got called up. Very exciting addition to the left side of that infield, whether it be at shortstop or at third base. They're in their worst split, but I still think they have an opportunity to make Flaherty throw a lot of pitches, work early and difficultly. And AJ Hinch hasn't been slow with his hook of Flaherty when he gets into trouble. He only threw 82 pitches. Last time out against Minnesota, got kind of shelled there a lot and struck out just 3. That was one of those 2 starts in recent memory that he's gone under 6.5. And I think he goes under it again tonight. I think even if he keeps the White Sox off the scoreboard, they're going to make him work. They're going to put the ball in play, foul off a bunch of pitches. And 6.5 just seems really high. I think 5.5 would have been a really reasonable line here. But 6.5, and you can get the under around minus 105, minus 10. That's a great way to fade Flaherty today if you're afraid of betting on the White Sox outright, given their pitching questions going into tonight.
I might be betting the over. It's going to be really humid tonight. Rain in the forecast as well. So I make this total about 9.25, and I think I see over 8.5 at minus 115. I prefer the White Sox against lefties as opposed to righties, but generally speaking, especially given this White Sox like mysterious pitching plan and their willingness to probably just let dudes get shelled tonight because they threw all of their key relievers in a tight game yesterday. Just every good arm in the White Sox bullpen worked yesterday. So I think you see lesser pitching from them today. Flaherty, always a guy I want to fade against. So over likely in that game for me. Up to 9 at even money, I think would be okay.
Bregman's return to Houston went pretty well, huh? They went, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs, a homer, and now we got another game here sitting at 8.5 for the total. Sean, you're actually bucking the trends of the high-scoring Astro games as of late. And listen, yesterday you brought Taijuan Walker to the table. You went under on that one. The Phillies gave it a little bit of nervous energy there at the end of the game, scoring 4 in the 8th. But it basically was, coming in under the whole way. Another gem from Taijuan. So I'm going to take your word for it here, because when I look at the pitching matchup, my eyes laser focus in on Dustin May, and I'm surprised that you're calling for an under. But walk me through it. I'm going to put my faith in you because you rewarded me yesterday.
Yeah, put your faith in the Red Sox pitching development and their pitching coaches and Andrew Bailey and Craig Breslow and everything they have going on there, because every time they get their hands on a pitcher, it's immediate changes in terms of their arsenal. They got their hands on Dustin May and said, stop throwing your sinker to right-handed pitchers, start throwing your four-seam fastball again. which is odd because the Red Sox, all we talked about last year was them moving away from four-seam fastball usage. Well, I guess it's a pitcher-by-pitcher basis because with Dustin May, they said stop throwing your sinker as much, throw your four-seam fastball a little bit more, throw your cutter more, stop throwing your sweeper as much. And he's made those changes both to left-handed and right-handed hitters. We'll see if it has a dramatic impact going forward, but I did see a thread from Tango Tiger on Twitter this morning basically pointing out May's career best success kind of aligning with the same pitching usage, and then he kind of slowly moved away from that. And now the Red Sox have him getting back to a more similar pitch mix to when he was at his career best. So I think, you can just, in general, when guys go to the Red Sox, when pitchers go to the Red Sox, I would probably upgrade them relative to their projections because I think they're acquiring guys with the idea of making intentional modifications in order to improve them. And I expect them to get the most out of Dustin May going forward. I think the scarier piece of this is Spencer Arrighetti, who came back in his first start. I believe he had he didn't have Tommy John. He broke his thumb earlier in the year. We joked about this on the pod last week. He was playing catch in the outfield and got hit with a batted ball just like randomly. And the percentage chance of that happening is astronomical because you're just standing in the outfield and you get hit by a random batted ball. But even though he gave up 11 hits in that start to the Marlins, struggled with command at points, the expected ERA, just the 3.75 in that start, and the BOT ERA was 3.67. So the pitch modeling metrics liked what was coming out of his hand. Expected results said he got a little unlucky to give up that many hits in that outing. I make this total about 7.73. I'd bet the under 8.5 to minus 115, even under 8 to even money. This game also fits a contrarian system, contrarian unders for winning teams, about a lifetime 4.1% ROI, and seeing, the heavy ticket splits to the over in this game and the under not moving off of 8.5, I think is pretty encouraging. So under 8 here, down to even money between the Red Sox and Astros.
Bet on pitchers that the Red Sox acquire unless their name is Walker Buehler.
Even he's been a little bit better of late, though, too. And Giolito as well. Like those.
Oh, yeah. Giolito's fine. Yeah, but Buehler, oh, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's close out the card here. 9.5 in the Battle of LA between the Dodgers and the Angels. Dodgers making the hour road trip south to take on the Halos at Angel Stadium. Victor Medeiros is probably just an opener in this one, I would imagine, before he turns the ball over to the worst bullpen in the AL, or at least they're in the conversation there. No pen in the majors has given up more long balls than the Halos. I mean, could the Dodgers just get to this number on their own, Sean?
That would be nice. I enjoy those, sweat-free wins where the team just puts up 10 runs and they're like, all right, I can turn off this game now. I don't have to watch it anymore. So Tyler Anderson was supposed to start this game for the Angels initially. Never really seen them use an opener in front of him. So I'd imagine that he is not going to pitch in this game. But the Dodgers bullpen, the Angels bullpen, obviously terrible. It's the Dodgers bullpen for me that I think can give up the runs and help us get over this number. Last 30 days, Dodgers bullpen 24th in expected FIP, 20th in strikeout minus walk, 17th in pitching plus, 19th in body array. So the pitch modeling metrics aligning with below average results. Also have a very good over umpire in this game. Scott Barry, career 500 over under, 217, 217, and 22, which is astonishing over that big of a sample to be exactly 500 with 27 pushes over or under. But he has a strikeout minus walk rate of just 11.7%. That's well below the Major League average. Major League average about 13.5%. You see a lot of the umpires too, despite being pitcher friendly or hitter friendly, they don't really stray from that 13.5% number by more than 1 percentage point. Generally speaking, I don't see guys above 14% or below 13%. Well, Barry all the way down at 11.5%, I think speaks to the fact that he is not as generous with the strikeouts and a little bit more generous with the walks in terms of helping hitters out. So I make this total about 10.15. I'd bet the over 9.5 up to minus 115, or again, 10. I think at even money is probably a fine bet as well. And then I added, as I said, that Tigers White Sox, I'm probably going to add the over. I added this morning Mariners and Orioles over 9. I like to minus 118, and then Rays and A's over 9.5 up to 10 at -115. So some late ads on some overs here. Just wanted to confirm some late weather, but an 11 or 12 bet slate looks like a pretty full card for today compared to yesterday, where as of this time we had 2 bets.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard from Collin and Sean in today's episode, look for the Quick Slip link in the episode description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the pod. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast to sign up for that. We'll be back on Friday for more MLB Best Bets with Derek Carty and Billy Ward. For Sean Zerillo and Collin Whitchurch, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.